the purpose of dying to the current self so that you can be risen to a higher state of being to where when you remember who you were, then you'll be able to say, I have died of that person and I am born again. And due to the fact that you understand exactly what the problem was, the two opposing perceptions and giving yourself to the understanding and the conflict of both of those, you will find yourself at a higher state of understanding along with this very beautiful state of humility and clarity, and you'll be able to walk this human journey a whole lot more clearer and understanding and with a whole lot less conflict. Now people will say, well, why do you say less conflict? Because you're gonna be living in this world and its social order and its environment is full of challenges. And as long as you're on this earth, you're gonna be challenged. But as long as you understand that the environment is not the challenge, but you are the challenge, and in the way you decide to respond to it, and due to the fact that you are in that state of newness and in state of humility, you're going to respond at a new level of existence because you have been born again. So that's why the scripture says, let this mind be in you as was in the anointed Christ. It says, let this mind be in you. In other words, allow it. Allow this mind to be in you. So in other words, move forward without fear. Because we understand that we're living in a world that is chaotic and it's dangerous. And some of us perceive that what a lot of people call Christ consciousness as a state of vulnerability, living in such a chaotic world. But humility is key. And clarity is not divorced from humility. And as you move forward, you're able to understand things more objectively, and you don't get pulled in to the chaotic vices of the world.
This is what it is, okay?
You're talking to Longstreet, played by James Francisco.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Like that, you see?
Oh, I see. I get the idea.
My coming up in Chicago, my great grandmother was Catholic, and my dad and his people, they were Baptists. I had she's still living. I had a cousin named Olivia Little. She was a Muslim in the Nation of Islam, and she used to go to Mosque Mariam, where Farrakhan is conducting his ministry there. She went back in the days when Elijah Muhammad was still living. So this was a while back, because Elijah Muhammad passed away in 1975. But during all of those times, I've noticed how people would feel encouraged a whole lot over a whole lot of the teachings that Yeshua had brought forth. But it was one primary teaching that he, instruction, you might as well say, that he gave to the disciples before he sent them out. And that was what a whole lot of us know about. And it's always commonly said when he told them, be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And so I would have to say that Dr. Martin Luther King, he tried to mix that in with the entire nonviolence tactic, you know, with the whole turn the other cheek and everything. But that's not what Yeshua was talking about. And what he meant, to my understanding, you have to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And see, those go in harmony with one another. Talking about how to deal with society and environment. The way that the serpent moves, it goes. It has a wisdom, so it has a capability of going in and out of environments unseen and mostly untouched, you know, and harmless as a dove in its movements. It's not harming. It's able to go through different environments that have a whole lot of barriers to where it could be equivalent to what is called opposition or barriers, and is able to go through those and not harm anyone. So that's why it says wise as a serpent, not as dangerous as a serpent, but wise as a serpent, and yet harmless as a dove. So in order to understand that type of activity, one must understand the quality of humility, the importance of the quality of humility, because the only way that you will be able to function in that way, you have to understand the vitality, you might as well say, as I said again, of humility. You have to excuse me. It's 2:59 a.m. out here in Las Vegas, and I'm on a small vacation, and I just not too long ago woke up and I've decided to stay up. But as it says, you have to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And it takes humility in order to activate yourself as such. You have to be fully aware, in which takes humility. You have to be wise in order to function. And all of that takes humility. And harmless as a dove, it implies no matter what type of opposition that you come about, have not the mind that's going to strike out. Harmless as a dove, and you take those two and you integrate them together, you might as well say, and you understand how to move in this society. You have to be humble, a state of humbleness, and the action of that state is humility. You walk the earth in humility, as the Quran says. You know the righteous, for they walk the earth in humility. Humility. And so as that goes on, you understand how to exist in a chaotic world without succumbing to it, nor being affected by it. And as a portion of my video has said before this, there are a lot of people who are afraid to live righteously because the world that we live in right now is so chaotic. And so there are some people who feel as though they have to lose their humanity in order to survive in a world that is inhumane. And all of that is rooted in fear. As the footage of Brother Bruce Lee, when he said, you must be as water. You pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You pour water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. He said, be water, my friend. Now this new world, this new wave community will assert that means matching your enemy's energy. I'm going to match his energy, and yet still you perceive him as your enemy. But if you're matching his enemy, then he's not your enemy. If you're matching his energy, then that man or woman is not your enemy. It's actually your brother or your sister, because you're matching your energy with theirs. This is why I have a issue with this whole new wave community, because a whole lot of the nonsense that they speak about is a lie. The vibrations and the frequencies, you're not on my frequency, and you're a low vibrational person. All of this is just a bunch of nonsense. It's just another doctrine created in order for you to attack people and judge people and condemn people, and to assert that you're better than everyone else, when no one is better than the next, unless their moral standards are higher than the other. And if your moral standards are higher than the other, then you're responsible of teaching one another how to come up together. And this is how the kingdom of heaven is created, right here on earth. But the word speaks of these different strange doctrines that are going to be cultivating in society, to where it's not going to do anything but cause divisiveness within mankind. And divisiveness is the greatest violence that is against mankind, because it shatters everybody in different fragments, and each fragment is claiming the whole. When they're nothing but different states of mind and doctrines that only exist because the truth has been compromised. And everyone's got their own thing going, and everyone claim that they have the facts. And yet still everyone's attacking one another. And this is supposed to be the function of humanity. And this is supposedly mankind's intention on making society better, or making the world a better place to live, when it is not. It is not. So this is why he said, be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. You can't go into a chaotic world and acquire the wisdom in order to give insight into things to the point to where, and you could speak with a wisdom to where those who are in a state of chaos are able to listen to you, because you carry yourself in a humble type fashion, because you're living and you're activating in humility. And therefore you're not matching their chaotic energy. You're not supposed to conform to the world and these doctrines that the world is, as they say, activating on. It's chaotic. It's chaotic because everyone is clashing with one another, and everyone is asserting to have the facts. And so we're going back to the whole yin and yang symbol, where they're clashing and wrestling against one another. And if you look at the yin and yang, even though they're black and white and they're clashing, each one has a circle drawn in it, which implies their sphere of information. And the sphere, the circle is complete. And therefore there's no room for compromise. There's no gap in neither of the circles. And so as far as they're concerned, they have to complete truth. And yet still, they're both clashing. When each party has the truth and they have the facts, then there is only peace, because everyone have the facts of the matter and not a point of view of these different things. And then you don't have people in the world asserting that, oh, all of y'all got demons sitting up in y'all. You know, I would be trying to match my energy, but, you know, I stay away from y'all because, you know, a lot of y'all are demonic, which is demonic in itself. Sounds like a person that's observing everyone else except themselves. That's no distinction from the Christian saying, I'm going to pray for y'all. When Yeshua said, you go into your own closet and pray. Pray for yourself. Or like every Sunday, the pastor says, who needs prayer? And everybody gets in this line. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you. You can pray for yourself. Because only you know what's going on in your closet. You know what's going on with you. Your good and your bad. You already know. You know yourself better than any pastor. So don't put blinders on your own self simply because you look up to these pastors, male or female, as gods. Guidance. You know, these people, or this person's going to guide me. I'm going to ask my pastor. Instead of relying upon your relationship with the Creator for your answer, and simply because you won't get your answers immediately because you feel as though you need your answers immediately, you run to your pastor. But the only thing you have to do is just get up off your knees and move forward into the day. And when your mind is at ease, and when your intelligence and material and maturity level is at a place of where you will be able to receive it because your mind is not in conflict, that's when the clarity is going to be given to you that you previously gotten on your knees and asked the Creator for. It's not coming from anyone else. If you're asking the Creator for clarity, that's where it's going to come from. The Creator. It's not going to come from a pastor. It's not going to come from any church. And it never has. Clarity has forever came from the Spirit of God. I almost say the Most High, but that's asserting that there is a lesser high. Well, this one is the Most High, but this one is the less high. I mean, that's asserting that there's two gods in function, and one is higher and one is lower. So I don't deal with that. That's just one of the things I was telling the Israelites when I was talking to them. But it is possible to live inside of a chaotic world and not be consumed by it. And you're still able to help heal a chaotic world by being wise as a serpent and yet harmless as a dove. Being wise as a serpent is knowing where to go and where not to go. Being able to go into the killing fields and move away when you should. And yet still, when you come upon a situation, someone with a problem or someone with conflict, whether you encounter two people who you feel as though they could hurt one another, or even if someone approaches you with the intent to hurt you either physically or verbally, due to the fact that you are in a state of humility and wisdom, what will come out of you based upon a clear understanding that is not based in violence or matching their energy, you will be able to resolve the matter peacefully, and therefore you will be harmless as a dove. And as we all know, the Holy Spirit, the dove represents the Holy Spirit. So with that being said, I wanted to go in a little bit more with this, but as I said, I'm just not too long woke up, and I just wanted to put something together because there was a whole lot on it. I'm hoping this was understood. I may have to go over this again, but everyone have a good morning, and everyone please stay human. Peace. what he meant, to my understanding, you have to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And see, those go in harmony with one another. Talking about how to deal with society and environment. The way that the serpent moves, it goes. It has a wisdom, so it has a capability of going in and out of environments, unseen and mostly untouched, you know, and harmless as a dove in its movements. It's not harmony. It's able to go through different environments that have a whole lot of barriers to where it could be equivalent to what is called opposition or barriers, and is able to go through those and not harm anyone. So that's why it says wise as a serpent, not as dangerous as a serpent, but wise as a serpent, and yet harmless as a dove. So in order to understand that type of activity, one must understand the quality of humility. Humility in order to activate yourself as such. You have to be fully aware, in which takes humility. You have to be wise in order to function. And all of that takes humility. And harmless as a dove, it implies no matter what type of opposition that you come about, have not the mind that's going to strike out. Harmless as a dove. And you take those two and you integrate them together, you might as well say. And you understand how to move in this society. You have to be humble. You know, a state of humbleness, and the action of that state is humility. You walk the earth in humility, as the Quran says. You know the righteous, for they walk the earth in humility. Humility. And so as that goes on, you understand how to exist in a chaotic world without succumbing to it, nor being affected by it. You can go into a chaotic world and acquire the wisdom in order to give insight into things, to the point to where, and you could speak with a wisdom to where those who are in a state of chaos are able to listen to you, because you carry yourself in a humble type fashion, because you're living and you're activating in humility. And therefore you're not matching their chaotic energy. You're not supposed to conform to the world and these doctrines that the world is, as they say, activating on. It's chaotic. It's chaotic because everyone is clashing with one another, and everyone is asserting to have the facts. And so we're going back to the whole yin and yang symbol, where they're clashing and wrestling against one another. And If you look at the yin and yang, even though they're black and white and they're clashing, each one has a circle drawn in it, which implies their sphere of information. And the sphere, the circle is complete. And therefore, there's no room for compromise. There's no gap in neither of the circles. And so, as far as they're concerned, they have to complete truth. And yet still, they're both clashing. When each party has the truth and they have the facts, then there is only peace, because everyone have the facts of the matter and not a point of view of these different things. And then you don't have people in the world asserting that, oh, all of y'all got demons sitting up in y'all. You know, I would be trying to match my energy, but, you know, I stay away from y'all because, you know, a lot of y'all are demonic, which is demonic in itself. Sounds like a person that's observing everyone else except themselves. That's no distinction from the Christian saying, I'm going to pray for y'all. When Yeshua said, you go into your own closet and pray. Pray for yourself. Or like every Sunday, the pastor says, who needs prayer? And everybody gets in this line. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you. You can pray for yourself. Because only you know what's going on in your closet. You know what's going on with you. Your good and your bad. You already know. You know yourself better than any pastor. So don't put blinders on your own self simply because you look up to these pastors, male or female, as gods. Guidance. You know, these people, oh, this person's going to guide me. I'm going to ask my pastor. Instead of relying upon your relationship with the Creator for your answer, and simply because you won't get your answers immediately because you feel as though you need your answers immediately, you run to your pastor. But the only thing you have to do is just get up off your knees and move forward into the day. And when your mind is at ease, and when your intelligence and material and maturity level is at a place of where you will be able to receive it because your mind is not in conflict, that's when the clarity is going to be given to you that you previously gotten on your knees and asked the Creator for. It's not coming from anyone else. If you're asking the Creator for clarity, that's where it's going to come from. The Creator. It's not going to come from a pastor. It's not going to come from any church. And it never has. Clarity has forever came from the Spirit of God. I wanted to do you might as well say part 2 of the challenge of living righteously. So I wanted to follow up on that video. And this background that I'm using illustrates that. But what I always say, that the challenge is not what's people do on the external to you, but the challenge is always yourself, because when it all boils down to it, our most profound reality will always be what's going on inside of ourselves, and what we are consciously not only aware of, but what we are consciously aware of, we're responsible for resolving it within ourselves, even if we never have the opportunity to resolve it with the people in whom we feel wronged us. I was gonna make some more statements on the previous video, but I've decided to kind of move forward based upon the previous video, but at the same time, I want to go back in my past when I was coming up in Chicago. Because, you know, Brother Malcolm had said, in a child's mind, he said, a child's mind is fertile, and within its rich soil, all possibilities grow. I focus on the possibilities and the fertile child's mind, a child's mind that is very fertile and therefore innocent and very, you can make a powerful impression on a child's mind. The same as something is very new, or I can even compare it to wet cement, or the first snowfall. It's very easy to alter it because it's weak and it's fertile. And that probably wasn't a good illustration, but you get what I'm saying. I'm going to be struggling through this tonight. And so that's one of the reasons why I use this background, because this background represents me, what I'm feeling on the inside, because I'm going to go back because to where a place where most people would say, well, he's a grown man. Why is he still affected by that? I'm not affected in such a way to where I haven't learned anything from it. Now, due to the fact that I've learned something from this, I've grown and I've healed, but there are some things that affect you in your course of childhood that you're really never going to be able to heal from it, because you really are not supposed to heal from everything. You're just supposed to learn lessons. And sometimes those lessons are more profound and meaningful due to the fact that you haven't healed 100% from them. Now, a lot of people may not agree with that, which is not my concern. I'm only speaking from my own experience. So I won't be mentioning names because I have a whole bunch of money and I don't want to be sued. So when I was coming up, I mentioned in another one of my videos that a lot of the marriages in my family, the real importance, I'm not saying that the other marriages wasn't as important, but the primary marriages, based upon the effects, failed. Like, we were, me, my aunt, my sisters, my uncles, we all were living with my great grandmother on the south side of Chicago. And the reason why it was so many people living in the home is because that was the results of a whole lot of marriages failing. So I had my uncles there. I had 4 uncles living there at first, 3 aunts, and it was myself and my sister. My mother was living there because her marriage with my dad had failed. And so we were all living there. And so there was a lot of tension present because it wasn't a family. We were just related, and we knew how we were related. But as far as having a loving relationship, that just wasn't there. It just wasn't. Now, some people in my family may feel embarrassed and may say, "Oh, well, David is not telling the truth." I really don't care. You know, I was the youngest in the family, and therefore, me having the most fertile mind, it had affected me more so because I was paying the most attention. And it's always the child that is paying the most attention that is accumulating all of this information. And when it is a whole bunch of discord going on, which is a whole bunch of excitement, the youngest child, who is the most aware in the home, is going to be more so effective because he has a fertile mind, and therefore he has a very high sense of awareness, and therefore he's a intellectually and mentally sensitive child. And at that age, he's slightly an emotional child because he haven't matured yet. So there's a whole lot going on with this child around this child that shouldn't be going on. So there was very whenever there were arguments in the home, it was chaos. But even after the big arguments ceased, because of the effects of the arguments, there was always tension in the air. I know it was for me. And I would always say to myself, how long are we going to enjoy this so-called peace until something else transpires? And then everybody is in chaos again. And it was always my mother and my oldest sister that was stirring up a whole bunch of the chaos. So in effect, when you're a child and you're growing up with friends and you meet friends in school, you get to know friends who live across the street from you, or like my first best friend, Bernard Conley, said, a hop, skip, and a jump from one another. I guess I'm going to have to mention that. But due to the fact that there's so much chaos going on in the home, and you have so much love inside of you, that is pure love that is supposed to be expressed, naturally expressed as a brother, as a nephew, as a cousin, as a great-grandson, and as a grandson. And you're living inside of an environment to where you have all of these potential relationships around you that you are supposed to be able to express, it's just not possible because of the presence of the chaos. So you're walking around with all of this inside you, and it affects you in such a way to where you develop this anger issue. You know, like people say, oh, he's got an anger problem. Let's talk about the distinction between having an anger issue and an anger problem. And it's very short. The whole thing is, when you have an anger issue, you're dealing with an individual who is angry because of the effects of the environment. And the majority of the time, this person becomes rigid and irritated tremendously. It seems like he's this way all the time because he is not in understanding of why he's feeling this way. And due to the fact that he doesn't have anyone around him as an uncle, as an older sister, as a another family member, in order to pull him to the side and say, why are you feeling like this? What's going on with you? Let's go for a walk, let's talk. Due to the fact that you don't have those outlets in order to seek counseling, it means nobody around you is noticing that you have an issue. To them, you have a problem, which is a misconception, which is a misperception. Because if a person has an anger problem, every time you look around, coming up on the south side of Chicago, this young man would be out robbing, he would be out stealing. He's a very immensely strong, physically strong young man who is a phenomenal martial artist and a boxer. However, he's not out committing crimes, and therefore his anger doesn't cultivate any problems that you have to deal with. He may have an anger issue, but he doesn't have an anger problem because he's not hurting anyone. He's not involving himself in any gangs, various gangs like the Disciples, the El Rookins, the Blackstone Rangers. You know, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs. I didn't even pitch pennies. I didn't even play pool. Because it was certain environments that I stayed out of because those particular environments made me angry. Like people say, what's wrong with playing pool? I never said there was anything wrong with playing. I stayed out of the environment of pool halls because it seemed like everybody, instead of enjoying playing pool, they wanted to challenge one another at playing pool, and they attached money to it. And so within an environment like that, you have a lot of guys and women with egos because they want to win. And there's other people around them who they don't want them to see them lose. And so you're dealing with ego, you're dealing with reputation, and also you're dealing with how everyone around you is going to think of you if you just so happen to lose. And so whether you realize it or not, you become a slave to everyone else's opinion. So what I would notice with environments like that, I would notice how fights would always break out in pool halls. And I'm like, whenever I used to take my walks, I'm like, it's just playing pool. What's wrong with playing pool? And so the Creator told me, go into the pool halls and pay attention. And this is the reason why I'm able to tell you what transpires in a whole lot of pool halls. because people just can't get together and just play pool. It's competition. And wherever you have competition, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have chaos. It was the same as pitching pennies. Money is involved. Competition is involved. I had a friend named Brian Terrell who was out one night pitching pennies with this other brother who we all knew. His name was Tony Cow. They were pitching pennies at our elementary school. This happened at night. And Brian Terrell was to have won a penny pitching contest against Tony Cow. And so Brian Terrell told Tony Cow that he owed him. It was said he owed Tony Cow 4 cents, and another person had said he owed him 35 cents. Now, neither one of these amounts of money justified what happened, but I'm going to move forward and tell you what happened. So, Tony Cow has said, you owe me 4 cents or 35 cents. Brian Terrell said, I'm not giving you shit. I'm not giving you nothing. And he laughed about it. What happened after? Tony Cow pulls out his gun. Brian Terrell starts running away, and he ends up on the elementary school's front grass. Tony Cow shoots him in his back. He falls down on the grass. Tony Cow walks up to Brian Terrell and shoots him 4 times in his head, and he kills him. A friend of mine named Cecil Westmoreland, rest in peace, saw this with his eyes, and he froze. He looks across the street. Tony Cow looks across the street, and he sees Cecil Westmoreland, who knew both of them. Tony Cow puts up his gun and said, you want some too? Cecil Westmoreland took off running. Cecil Westmoreland, 2 days after this unfortunate event, he had said to us, him and another friend, I forget who he said he was with, they ran so fast and so long they got lost. They got lost. But why did this transpire? Competition. We just can't enjoy our activities without always competing with one another. Competition cultivates the potential for violence. And so, coming up in Chicago, this is what I noticed. And so, even becoming a phenomenal martial artist, I joined the martial art team in the school in Chicago called George Henry Corliss High School. I met some of the best brothers in my life. Edward Drakes and Vince Drakes, and a whole lot of great, beautiful brothers. We were all on our martial arts team. And so there was a moment that we had a martial arts tournament with this other high school under the name Dunbar High School. And before the tournament, I wasn't only listening to my own language, but I was listening to everyone else's language. Simply because we were going to be going up against another school. If you were there and if you heard the language, that we were speaking, you would have thought that we knew these brothers and we had problems and we were just going to go on the mat. We were just going to destroy them because the language was indicating that these brothers was our enemies. When they were just peers of martial arts going to another high school, and we were all involved in the same art of martial arts. However, what had happened is the guy who was training me under the name Vince Drakes, he went up against a guy who they had a beautiful match against one another. But during the match, we all noticed how they began to like one another because they started admiring each other's skills. And so that had an effect on all of us. And all of a sudden, we were able to perceive that we all were involved in something very beautiful, which was the art of hand-to-hand combat, Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. And so it didn't end with us being enemies. We parted our ways as brothers. So all of this goes back to when you develop friends with people. You grow up. You become close to the people in your vicinity. These are the people who you consider your friends. You have people who are your friends, and you have those group of people who you just go to school, who are considered classmates. Now, people may say, well, those are your friends too. It all depends on your relationship with these classmates during the weekend. Now, if I'm never invited to your home to sit and eat with your family, if you and I don't associate ourselves with one another during the weekend, then we just go to school together. You're just a classmate. But when you're right across the street and I see you every day, even during the week, and we have a friendship, that's how it cultivates to you saying, this is my best friend. See, that implies you having a relationship with this person on a daily basis, including the weekend. This is how this person becomes your best friend, because you have an ongoing relationship with this individual. And so this person is just not your classmate. This person is your friend, your best friend, because you develop a friendship with him, which implies he's just not your friend. You have a relationship within your friendship. And so, and relationship with this person, and that means you have a friendship with him, something that is activating, something that is moving. That's what that means. So you become close to this person. So when you say this person is my best friend, and when you develop other friends around this person who is your best friend, he or she may remain your best friend, but those who they are related to are on a daily basis, you may not feel as though they are your best friends, but those people are close to you as well. And so you have a lot of people around you that you consider friends, even if it's not a whole lot. These people are friends, and you have friendship. And so you have uh, one, two, three, up to six people who you have a friendship with, and these are the people who you grow up every day with, and you go to school with these people. So these are just not classmates. These are people who you grow up. You see these people develop, and they see you develop as a human being. So as time goes on, what they noticed about me was that I had anger issues. And it wasn't simply because of the environment of where I was coming up in. Every day, I didn't have a father around me consistent to help me understand not only the effects of anger, but what anger is itself. I had to find all of that out on my own. And so, as far as that was concerned, not only to me, but to those around me, that anger issue had become infused with my everyday personality. It's not that I was walking around rigid and angry all the time. It's just that by me being a martial artist and everything, my character was associated with potential violence because I was a martial artist, and I was a very good martial artist. So my reputation surfaced around being a martial artist and being a big Bruce Lee fan. So I was called a Bruce Lee freak. And so because of that, that went along with my personality. Whether I realized how that was altering my real personality or not, I had no idea. And so, but I was accepted. As time goes on, you go into seventh grade. And suddenly, there's a young man who moves into the neighborhood. He starts going to school with everyone. He's a big guy. He's into sports and everything. He's very expressive, you know. He's on a certain level. People look up to him, so he attracts certain people that are based upon his level as far as he's concerned. So he makes a huge impression on everyone to the capacity to where whatever he thinks and whatever he says is borderline gospel to everyone else. Now, this is a man who makes a huge impression on who you consider is your best friend. And so he has such an influence on your best friend, you don't have a best friend anymore. And so as time goes on, you find out that you don't have a best friend anymore because this new presence in the community has a dislike for you for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Because it took you a while to even know that this dude even existed. But due to the fact that before you met him, he obviously was observing you, or you were being badmouthed by your so-called best friend and other people. I mean, there were some people who moved into the neighborhood who called themselves trying to bully me, and they paid because I wasn't having it. But the next thing you know, your friends start dropping out. You go into 7th grade, you go into 8th grade, and you look around halfway through the 7th grade, all of your friends are slowly dropping out. All of your friends are slowly dropping out. And so what happens is that the younger generation, who are, you might as well say, an extension of your used to be solid friends, those are the ones who bring you into their realm. And so you develop a friendship with the quote unquote younger generation. And so as time goes on, this person comes around, this very impressionable person. He comes around. He's even standing in front of the house with you, your great grandmother's house, and he's talking and everything like that. And so you don't know what's going on. So you just having a good time with your friend, and you even bring him in there. And you fail to know that there's a lot of deception and backtalk going on about you. And so it comes up that he's going to have a birthday party. I believe it was to celebrate his 14th or 15th birthday, maybe a little older. No, I believe it was his 16th birthday. And so everyone around you is saying, hey, we all going to be going to Oscar's birthday party. Yeah, I said his name. His name was Oscar. So you figure, since you're part of the group, oh, when is it? Oh, it's going to be on this such a day. Okay. So you were not told what time it was going to happen. And so you tell your mother, where you going? Mom, I'm going to go down here to Oscar Hand's birthday party. And due to the fact that the gang violence at that time had started to swell a little bit in our section of the neighborhood, my mother didn't feel comfortable with me walking 3 blocks down to his home for his birthday. So she had my Uncle Keith, the comedian, to take me down. I put on my little blue suit, and everything. We're walking down there, because I noticed everyone else had already went. We go down there, ring the doorbell. His mother answers the door. She looks at you and she said, may I help you? And I told her, I'm here for the birthday. she tells you, I'm sorry, David, you were not invited. And so you say, oh. And so you drop your head. You and your uncle turn around and you're walking back home. You walking back home with your head down and you are totally confused. Totally confused, you crushed, and the only question that is going through your mind is, what did I do? Your Uncle Keith, who was walking on your left side, tall, the comedian, was silent because he knew that his nephew was crushed, mortified. And I knew Keith was like, what can I say to him? You know, how can I can't even joke about this, because so obviously my Uncle Keith, not only was he confused about everything, obviously he was hurt all at the same time. So we're walking back home. I get halfway down the street. All of a sudden, I'm hearing, DA! They used to call me DA for David Anthony. Come on, you can come to the party. So I turn around. Oh, I'm so overjoyed that you accept me. I'm running. Forgot about my Uncle Keith. I'm running. And as I'm running towards the house, everybody is cheering, yeah. And then as soon as I get there, everybody is patting me on the back and saying, oh yeah, he was running. And I'm standing there faking. Yeah. I had a great time at Oscar's party. I was even the life of the party. But when you're a child, you don't understand what just happened to you, because you're not a thinking child, because your mind is fertile. And the possibilities of being matured into clarity has not begun as yet. It hasn't started yet. And so you mature. And so as time goes on, you're walking down the street with your cousin, and there's some other people walking down the street with you, like your best friend, people like that. And there was another family that had this van, and they would always pick Oscar up and a whole lot of other people. And a couple of times they took us with them, and we would drive around Chicago. Sometimes we would go downtown, we have a good time. And so this particular night, they were all getting in the van, and all of a sudden, you see this person, Oscar, tell him, come on, hurry up, let's go. And so they get in the van, and we're all running because we figuring, hey, we can ready to go ride around with them. They drive off and leave us. And so me remembering, things are starting to make sense to me. And I'm like, and I noticed, and so I said, you know, I think it was because of him. I think it was because of Oscar that they did that. Because we usually go with them. How come it's a problem now? So now you're noticing the influential impact that this one person has on the people who you know. So 2 days later, Me and my cousin, Joe Ritz, we used to go on these walks and we used to just talk about just everything. So that same area, they were all out there. It was him and it was all of them. Me and my cousin walk up on him. All of a sudden, he comes up to me and says he's going to kick my ass because I heard that you said such a thing. When we all was complaining, but me in particular, he felt like he was going to kick my ass. And so he started coming at me. And so I'm moving back and I'm trying to explain to him, what's the problem? And so everybody was trying to pull him back. And so I'm trying to get away from the dude because that's not where you want to go with me. Because I don't fight to just be fighting. I fight to kill, bro. I'm a killer. Now, this is something that my cousin knew about. And so he kept trying to come at me and everybody was trying to hold him. Now, this dude was already 6 feet. Huge guy, used to play football. But I'm a martial artist and I'm a phenomenal martial artist. And have this freakish type, almost Hulk type strength, and I'm skilled in martial art and boxing. And you might as well say I'm a student of Bruce Lee, so your size doesn't mean anything to me. It's not even a challenge to me. I don't see you as a challenge. I see you as prey. And so I'm trying to stay away from him to prevent things. And all of a sudden, my cousin noticed how I went like this. And he knew, okay, he ain't moving back no more, so I better stop my cousin. So he grabbed me and I snatched away from him like that. And my cousin said, hold on now, don't be snatching away from me like that. And immediately my mind said, okay, because of the same person, now you get ready to lose your cousin behind this bastard. So I immediately grabbed my cousin on his arm, I shook his arm, and I was basically implying that I was sorry. And so after everything stopped, he's standing up there telling me what he heard. And due to the fact that he particularly pointed me out as his enemy, and everyone who jumped in the van, I had to let them know, look, if you don't want me around, just say it. Just say it. You don't have to jump in the van and drive off like that and leave us. Even though it was a group of us that got left, due to the fact that he initiated them to get in the van, and since I'm the only person that he's approaching, I had to address just me. So I said, well, look, if y'all don't want me around, just say so. I don't really care. I have other people in my life that don't feel like that, like my cousin. So I told them I don't care. And so after having that discussion with them, we continued our walk. And so I had to make certain that my cousin wasn't affected by my reaction. So I had to apologize to my cousin. And I told him, look, I'm sorry. And I told him why my reaction was so intense. Because for some reason, this dude don't like me. And I haven't done anything to him. I haven't done anything to him. I said, he's the reason why Bernard is not even my best friend anymore. I don't understand what is it about this dude that's making everyone pull away from me. And so my cousin that said, well, the reason why I grabbed you, cousin, is because when I saw you get into that stance, I knew this is getting ready to go real bad. And he said, that's the only reason why I grabbed you. And I said, and I appreciate that. Because what I had in my mind, I was ready to kill this dude. You know, and my cousin said, that's what I saw in your eyes. And I wasn't about to see you stand there and watch you throw your life away. He said, it's not worth it. And so, after my family broke up and everybody went their separate ways, and I came back in touch with everyone by way of Facebook, got back in touch with everyone. I had even got back in touch with him. And I even sent him a friend request and he accepted it. However, our issues wasn't resolved. And how am I going to resolve an issue? Okay, if it's something that I did to him, I would be the first person to send him my number and tell him, look, we need to talk. Just like I did with another friend of mine who lived right across the street from me, named John Bill, who I used to abuse. I used to just beat him up for no reason. No, there was a reason, because he had a family. And so I was actually jealous of the fact that John Bill had two parents at home. And it took me a long time to realize that the reason why I used to abuse John in the way that I abused John is because I was actually jealous of John. Because John had a family, and I didn't realize that I didn't have it. So one day, I went over to Bernard's house, and John was there. And we were all in Bernard's backyard, and I just started beating John for absolutely no reason other than the fact that I was jealous of his life. That's all it was. That's why I'm using this background. And that's why I'm saying this background represents me, according to what I'm talking about. So, what stopped that is when I remember I jumped up and I did a roundhouse kick, and I kicked John right in his chest, right next to his heart. No reason other than the fact that I was jealous that he had two parents at home. And I didn't have no one. So I would never forget, and this was in the daytime, how John looked up at me with tears in his eyes. And John is a very bright-skinned brother. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and he looked at me. And his eyes questioned, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? I'm your friend. And so he went home, and my ignorant ass, I went on and I just showed that. Like I accomplished something. I didn't accomplish anything, because when I went home that night, I couldn't sleep, because all I could see was John's eyes, and I was hearing that question And not that I was only hearing, why are you doing this to me? I'm your friend. The Creator attached his hurt to my hurt. And my hurt, going along with his hurt, questioned my consciousness. Why are you doing this to him? This is your friend. And I couldn't sleep that night. And so the very next day, back over to Bernard's house. And they were laughing at me. And when they brought it to me, even though to them that was wrong, but they were joking, I told Bernard, I'm like, I would never do that to you. They said, why is that? I said, because the look in John's eyes, it killed me. It killed me. I said, I couldn't even sleep last night. 2 days later, who was it who was knocking on my door? I opened up the side door of the house. It was John Veal standing there. Yeah, you gonna come out to play? Beautiful, beautiful human being inside, you know? He didn't have to do that. But he did. See, it's the power of love and forgiveness and resolve. John Veal taught me how to love and to forgive people. He taught me that. He put a mirror in front of me, and I looked right into it. And you want to know why I looked? It was easy for me to look right into that mirror, because the night before, 2 nights before, I couldn't sleep because I couldn't see nothing but his eyes. And when I opened up that door and he was standing there, wow, that really explained to me, dude, you have some problems that you need to get a grip on. And yet still I was in the house, still had a father that was verbally abusive. Instead, he was the type of father I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't tell him, why am I acting like this? Why am I always so angry? I recall a night where I was sitting in my room. This was after all of that. I was sitting in my room and I was so angry. And I started grieving. And I went into my great-grandmother's room. And she was asleep. And so the lights in her room was out. And we used to call her Graham. Graham used to always keep her door open. And when you go into Graham's room, there was this little black chair on the right side, inside of her room. And so there was something about my grandmother that made me feel secure, because she was everyone's security. That she was everyone's security at home. And so I'm sitting there in the chair and I'm breathing, silent. So I'm breathing. And she laid there and she said, out of her sleep, I thought she was asleep. She said, DA, What's wrong? I said, I'm angry. And she said, what are you angry at? I said, I don't know. I said, and I'm angry because I don't know why I'm angry. And I told her, and I'm tired of feeling like this. And so she's still laying down. And she said, are you sure you're angry? I said, yeah, Grandma, I want to change. And she said, if you really want to change, she said, start right now. She said, if you don't want to be angry anymore, she said, then start right now. Right now. What did Yeshua say? Go and sin no more. What does no more imply? Stop it. Right now. Right now. She said, only you can stop it. Only you can stop it. And so I went in my room. And so I started buying these books on the philosophy of Bruce Lee. And I started reading his philosophy. And I started feeling better about myself. It even made me a better martial artist. And I became a more serious martial artist. I fell in love with classical music. And so I started going, you might as well say, started sneaking downtown from the age of 9, actually, to the Chicago Theater to listen to classical music and opera music, and opera. That's how I met the older guy, Igor, who gave me his violin. So basically, she was telling me that you're responsible for ending your own suffering. And that was very true because I didn't have a father who came around and helped me understand what I was feeling. I just knew that I was never going to lose control of it. So it didn't escalate to an anger problem to where it was putting me in jail, or it influencing me to go into gang violence or anger against my own being. So I started, it didn't start me drinking or doing drugs or anything like that. I had an anger issue that I decided to face. And so with all of that, I dealt with self. I just wish that my great grandmother, the only regret that I have in my life is that I wish that my great grandmother would have lived long enough to see how much better I have developed as a human being. However, by her being in the spiritual realm, she knows. I just wish that she was here physically for her to see it in her organism. You understand what I'm saying? So as time goes on, not too long ago, Oscar Hank has a stroke. Now, as I said, this is someone who has made an impact on my life. I felt like he was the reason why I lost my best friend. I feel like he was responsible for not a lot of my grief, but some of the grief in areas of my development that was in a whole lot of important areas, like my best friend, Bernard now. And so a brother who I grew up with, his name is Terrell McGee, who posted on one of my pictures, Oscar Hand had a stroke. And he said, check your DM. Now, Terrell McGee never sent me his number. Me and Terrell McGee have been in touch for a long time. Haven't been in touch for a long time. So I called him. He said, Oscar had a real bad stroke, so you should call him. I'm like, why? Why? Why should I call him? The man hates me. I don't like him. He made me hate him. You know, all of these excuses. Can't nobody make you hate nobody. No matter what a person causes in your life, to hate someone is your choice. I mean, it's easy. I mean, that sounds very philosophical. But it's very true. You know? And so that's why I kept my distance from him, because I was trying to keep my distance from him, you know, so I wouldn't, because what I was feeling that night when I went like this, I didn't want to feel that way towards him, and I didn't even understand why I didn't want to feel that way. Because a part of me felt like that feeling was justified, but it was only justified at that moment. And so I told Terrell that, okay, I'm going to give him a call. Now, whether he knew our relationship or lack of relationship or whatever it is, I don't know. But I couldn't get up. It's not the nerve, I just didn't want to call him because I just don't like this. Because I lost a lot of people that was close to me behind him. So fuck him. You know, that was my attitude. So that goes back to where a child's mind is very fertile. And within the mind, all possibilities, those possibilities, what grew inside of me was a hatred towards him, because I felt like he's the cause of me losing all of my close friends. However, if these people were indeed, in fact, my close friends, then no outside influence should have been able to convince them against me. So, did he, in his actions, reveal to me that I didn't have any close friends? Or my thoughts of having any close friend was not so? You know, the late Maya Angelou, rest in peace, she said, and you have to excuse me if I misquote this, she said, people will forgive you for what you do to them, But people will never forgive you for the way they made you feel. Those hurt feelings, bro, at a time where your mind is very fertile, make a huge impact on you. When you don't have a father around you, when you don't have a functioning relationship with your family, you're just inside of an environment with a whole bunch of people who are the subjects of failed marriages. You're placed in the position to where your life journey is going to be filled with a whole lot of life lessons that you're going to have to learn on your own. You're on your own, bro. You're on your own. Oscar Hans still lives this day. I may be angry at him, but I do not hate that brother. I don't. Seriously, I don't hate him. He revealed some things to me about other people. What he revealed to me was that the people who I thought were close to me were really not. They were really not close friends, because the people who I thought that I was close to, I still loved them, even when they went in the other direction. And that's where that pain of betrayal, that's where that came from. So the entire thing goes back to my previous video, the challenge of living righteously. Are you willing to go through a hostile environment and not conform to it to the degree to where you become a part of it? Due to the fact that I'm still angry at him for what I lost, that illustrates this. And I'll be the first one to admit it, because I'm a very transparent human being, and I want to be transparent to you. Now, people may say, none of us is perfect. You don't even know what perfection is. We don't know what perfection is. You want to know what perfection is? You're not going to find perfection in anything that is stagnant. You know how people say, oh man, that movie was perfect. Oh, this painting is perfect. You want to know what is perfect? Just get up in the morning and watch the sunrise. And when you look at the sunrise, the comparisons in your mind based upon the past, don't look at the present by way of the screen of the past. When you look at the clouds and the sun and everything is working in harmony with one another, and you accept it the way that it is, you might as well accept it the way that it is, because nothing you can do about it. And that's the beauty of it. You have no power to change anything, and that's the beauty of it. Because if you want to change it, it means that you're comparing. So you need to shut that off and just look at the beauty of what the Creator is doing before you. Just observe it. And once you understand that, wow, this is beautiful. Look at how it's moving. You're looking at something brand new. You will never see that again. And that's the beauty of it. Because the depth of the Creator's wisdom is going to give you a different day. Every time you rise and look, it's going to be brand new. So perfection is something that is brand new, Perfection is something that is alive and it's moving, and it's something that you can never compare it to. That's perfection. See, our perception of perfection is based upon the knowledge of the past, of things that we've seen, or based upon experiences of people who we've met, or how we feel about ourselves. And that comparison is always in function because we're always comparing. And with that perception, we see of where each and every one of us can make improvements by way of discarding certain areas of our personality or everyone else's personality. And so because of that, we come up with this ideology or perception of what we feel perception is. But that's our individual point of view of what perfection is. And due to the fact that it's a point of view, then it's not perfection. Because it's derived from our different comparisons. So the challenge of living righteously in a chaotic world is real. And the challenge will always be ourselves. It's going to always be ourselves. What's beautiful, and as odd as this may sound, what's beautiful about Brother Oscar Hand, I'm calling him Brother Oscar Hand's stroke, is the fact that my resistance to call him placed me in a position to where you can no longer say anything about that man. Now you really have to look at yourself. Because a man as intelligent and as spiritual as you are, that man needs to hear you right now. And you didn't pick up the phone to call him. So you can't say anything about him. And see, the beauty of that is the fact that his stroke put a mirror in front of me, in spite of all of the grief that he caused me. That same man who caused me grief, his stroke put a mirror in front of my face. I don't want to hold you too long, but I wanted to share that with everybody because I want to be as transparent as possible. And if this helps someone, then my struggling through this is worth it, even if it's just one person that it affects. It's that one person. That's fine. That's fine. Is this brother still living? Will him and I resolve our differences? I don't know. But if the opportunity presents itself, then I will. You know how a lot of people ask me, you know those 50-year friendship celebrations, how come you don't never go to those? I asked them before. Because everyone who I see outside of my cousin who gets along with everyone fell under his particular influence. And so within the crowd, I'm just considered like a tolerance, an outcast, a tolerance. Even though I call him Big Bro, Bernard Conlon. One of the reasons why I call him Big Bro, and even if he doesn't understand, and you have to see this, is because uh, I didn't have any brothers, and I looked up to him as a big brother. He was my best friend, but I looked up to him as my big brother. And so even this day, I call him big brother. He calls me his childhood friend. That's fine. That's fine. And I love everyone who I come up with. And I feel as though I was put in a position to where I feel as though the celebration of friendships, 50-year friendships, I feel like what's the point of going? You know, because that's not how I'm perceived. You know, I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be known that I'm wrong by way of experiencing such. And so by me being a living human being and a researcher, the next one that comes up, I will certainly be, regardless of who's there. And that may be him and I's opportunity to resolve my differences. So with that being said, I'm hoping that this helps someone. And everyone have a good night. And everyone, please stay human. Have a good night. Peace.